Well, there's two big issues here. One is this fight over voting, whether states make decisions on voting or whether Washington, D.C. Democrats make states on voting for their states, even if it's a Democrat state. And then the next big issue is, are the Democrats in this room actually going to destroy the filibuster and silence the rights of the minority in America? Now, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, I would have said, no way. That's not going to happen. Because a group of Democrats and a group of Republicans joined together and said, we are committed to not destroying the legislative filibuster. Why? Because it's what makes the House and the Senate different. The House and the Senate are not just one's bigger and one's smaller. The House and the Senate operate differently. And the Senate has been the place for 2.5 centuries where the debate occurs in the rights of individual senators to be able to debate the issues, defend their state, talk about the rights of Americans. This happens in the Senate. The majority rules the show in the House. If they have 218 of 435, they don't care what the other side thinks. People, when they talk about bipartisanship, never bring up the House of Representatives. They just don't. Bipartisanship doesn't happen in the House of Representatives the way it happens in the Senate, but the reason it happens in the Senate is because of this thing called the filibuster. It was interesting, when I was first elected into the Senate in 2014, the people that called me between my election and when I came were almost all Democrats, almost all of them. They want to introduce themselves. They want to say, what are you interested in? Because in the Senate, we have to work together to be able to get things done. And so I had all these Democrats that reached out to me to say, let's start trying to find areas of common ground. We're going to disagree on lots of things, but let's find the things we're going to agree on. Because we have to come to consensus because we're the United States Senate. That's commonly understood by senators, which is why in 2017, in the middle of the year, a group of Republicans and senators wrote a letter, this letter, to Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. In that letter, I'm going to read it right here from this paragraph. It says, we are mindful of the unique role the Senate plays in the legislative process, and we are steadfastly committed to ensuring that this great American institution continues to serve as the world's greatest deliberative body. Therefore, here's their request. Therefore, we're asking you to join us in opposing any effort to curtail the existing rights and prerogatives of senators to engage in full, robust, and extended debate as we consider legislation before this body in the future. This group of senators in 2017 wrote to Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and said, do not allow any changes. We are fully committed to making no changes in the filibuster. Don't allow it to happen for legislation. Don't allow it. Here were those that signed this document and said, this is what we believe. Kamala Harris, now Vice President of the United States. Chris Coons, who led the letter among all Democrats. Patrick Leahy, who's the person who's held this institution together. Dianne Feinstein, Amy Klobuchar, Kirsten Gillibrand, Cory Booker, Michael Bennet, Joe Manchin, Angus King, Mark Warner, Bob Casey, Martin Heinrich, Jaheen Shaheen, Sherrod Brown, Brian Schatz, Maria Cantwell, Mazie Hirono, John Tester, Tom Carper, Maggie Hassan, Tammy Duckworth, Tim Kaine, Jack Reed, Ed Markey, Debbie Stabenow, Sheldon Whitehouse, Bob Menendez, all said, don't change the legislative filibuster. In fact, they asked me, along with everyone else, to join them in opposing any efforts to make changes to the filibuster. It didn't just stop there. There were lots of other conversations that happened during that time period. There were lots of interviews and dialogue about it. Let me just read some of the comments that were made during that time period. George Stephanopoulos on ABC's program asked of Dick Durbin, the number 2 leader for Democrats, asked Dick Durbin, what do you think about doing away with the filibuster? Dick Durbin replied this in 2018. Well, I can tell you that would be the end of the Senate as it was originally devised and created, going back to our founding fathers. We have to acknowledge our respect for the minority, and that's what the Senate tries to do in its composition and in its procedure. That's Dick Durbin in 2018. John Tester was asked in 2019 about the legislative filibuster, and he said, I don't want to see the Senate become the House. He then said, if you're asking me about the filibuster changes, I'm a no. That would be a mistake. Senator Angus King made this comment in 2020. He said, I know it can be frustrating, but I think legislation is better when it has some bipartisan support. Senator Dianne Feinstein in 2020 said, filibuster is part of the Senate tradition, which creates a sobering effect on the body, which I think is healthy. One more comment from Angus King. Angus King was asked about it on CNN about the filibuster, and he replied back he's 100% opposed to killing the filibuster. 100%. Senator Cory Booker responded about the filibuster. He said, my colleagues and I and everybody I've talked to believe the legislative filibuster should stay there, and I will personally resist efforts to get rid of it. Senator Chris Coons, when asked about this in 2018, he replied, I am committed to never voting to change the legislative filibuster. Never. Senator Jackie Rosen in 2019 was asked about this, and she replied, I think we should keep the legislative filibuster. It's one of the few things that we have left in order to let all the voices be heard here in the Senate. She also said, we have to look not at just when you're in the majority, but what does it do when you're in the minority? You have to be mindful of that. Jeanne Shaheen was asked on CNN about the legislative filibuster in 2021, and she answered just simply, no. I would not support eliminating the 60-vote threshold, would not do it. Senator Jack Reed was asked in 2017, during the same time period this letter came out, which he was a signatory for. He said the filibuster is not in the Constitution or in the original Senate rules, but we have a bicameral system for a reason, and this legislative tool serves a critical purpose in ensuring the functioning of our democratic republic. Yes, it sometimes slows the process down, and some have abused or subverted it, but it remains an important part in our system of checks and balances. I agree. I agree with that, Jack Reed. Senator Bernie Sanders even was asked about the filibuster in 2019, and he just replied, no, I'm not crazy about getting rid of the filibuster. Senator Mazie Hirono from Hawaii said, I'm not particularly in favor of getting rid of the filibuster because that means majority rule, and that's what happens in the House. Senator Bob Casey was asked in 2019 about the filibuster, and he just replied, I'm a yes on keeping the filibuster. One of my favorites, Senator Sherrod Brown, was asked about this in 2019, and he replied, I think there are ways of getting things through Congress with the legislative filibuster still in place. It just takes a chief executive that knows what she or he is doing. Listen, this is not some trivial exercise. This is 250 years of history my Democratic colleagues are planning to flush down the toilet because they don't get their way on a bill we rightfully have very strong philosophical disagreements on. Hey, I don't agree on giving rapists and sex offenders who are convicted felons voting rights when they get out of prison. I'm not alone in that. I don't agree in federal tax dollars being used to be able to pay for political campaigns. I'm not alone in that. That's not that crazy. I don't agree that my state should have to go play Mother May I with some future attorney general because they want to add another day of voting. I'm not alone in that. But to say, if you don't do this now, I'll destroy the Senate, is a toxic shift for our republic and is a violation of what you have said before in public, in fact, written to the leadership of the Senate and said, please don't do this, and we will not do this. And now years later go, it's not convenient. That was when we were in the minority, we had one opinion. Now we have different core beliefs because we're in the majority. Interestingly enough, Joe Biden today stood in Georgia and made this statement. He said, today I'm making it clear to protect our democracy, I support changing the Senate rules whichever way they need to be changed to prevent a minority of senators from blocking action on voting rights. When it comes to protecting majority rule in America, the majority should rule in the United States Senate. Well, that's fascinating. Now that he's president of the United States, it is my way or I'll destroy the whole place. When he was Senator Joe Biden, he had a different opinion. Senator Joe Biden wasn't about, I'm the president so I get what I want. Senator Joe Biden said this statement, folks who want to see the change and eliminate procedural mechanisms designed for the express purposes of guaranteeing individual rights, and they also have consequences. They undermine the protections of a minority point of view in the heat of majority excess. But now he says, no, I'm in the majority, I should get my way. Senator Joe Biden said, well, I've been here 32 years, most of the time in the majority, he said. Whenever you're in the majority, it's frustrating to see the other side block a bill or a nominee you support. I've walked in your shoes and I get it. Getting rid of the filibuster has long-term consequences. If there's one thing I've learned in my years here, once you change the rules and surrender the Senate's institutional power, you never get it back. Senator Joe Biden said, simply put, the nuclear option would transform the Senate from the so-called cooling saucer our founding fathers talked about to cool the passions of the day to a pure majoritarian body like a parliament. We've heard a lot in recent weeks about the rights of the majority and obstructionism, but the Senate's not meant to be a place of pure majoritarianism. Is majority rule what you really want? It's what he said as a senator, but as president, his demand was majority rule, or we'll break every rule in the Senate to get what we want. Senator Schumer, in his public statements, has been very clear it would be doomsday for democracy, he said, if you change the filibuster. This is the statement Senator Schumer made in 2017. The same Senator Schumer that has spent the last 12 months trying to find a way to tear down the filibuster.